large global teams. In fact, my passion for helping people grow, develop, but also helping people embrace change is what over time brought me into the coaching path. Now, I'm curious to hear from those of you in the audience. We have around 28 people now. That's great. We expect a few more to join us. But I'm curious to hear if you could just put in the chat where are you dialing from? Which country, and also what is your profession? Whether you're an HR leader or any other type of business leader, a coach. Yeah, very interesting to find out a little bit more. What I wanted to emphasize as well before we kick off is the fact that it is actually the first webinar of a series that we call Collective Wisdom Series, and I will tell you why. Because we have introduced this series in partnership with inSymmetry. inSymmetry is actually an organization focused on rolling out peer-to-peer coaching programs. And in fact, those programs have already been successfully rolled out in some countries in Europe, and now we are planning to do the same also in Switzerland, in the UK, in Germany, and also outside of Europe. And I'm saying this at the very beginning because it is just the start of a journey, and we are very happy to welcome you as well in future webinars. A couple of logistical points as well. You might have seen that the session is being recorded because we had a quite high number of registrations, but we are aware of the fact that some people cannot join us in person, and therefore we will distribute the recording afterwards. And the second point as well, before I introduce the panelists, we are going to be running, the webinar in a form of a panel. We will be dedicating some time towards the end for questions that you might have. So please, write them down, and then we can cover them in the Q&A session. So on that note, let me actually start to introduce our panelists for today. And I will start first with Putri. So Putri is a global senior executive with over 20 years of experience leading large-scale transformations across industries and continents. And she will share a little bit more herself. But across different sectors, from tobacco and nutrition to natural resource. And she combines deep expertise in people, culture, and corporate affairs to help organizations navigate change with clarity, empathy, and impact as well. So welcome, Putri. Putri, by the way, is based in Switzerland, like me. And we have then Aga Posiecha as well with us. Aga, she's based in France. And Aga is the founder of A Purpose and formerly chief of staff at Swiss Bank, UBS, where she helped lead teams through major transformations and uncertain times like COVID is a great example. What guides her work is a simple belief that change can be strategic and human at the same time. So we don't have to lose people while leading them forward. Very nice to have you as well today, Aga. And obviously, your mantra is very nicely as well related to the topic of today's webinar. And last but not least, we have Tanya. Tanya Tasopoulos with us as well. Tanya is actually based in the Middle East, and to be more precise, in Dubai. Tanya is a business psychologist and organizational development expert. With over 25 years of experience as an executive in Europe and also in the Gulf, Middle East region. She is the founder and the CEO of Or Design Ways, a pioneering company offering services and AI solutions on organizational development. So you can see that we have three panelists with quite, diverse professional backgrounds, sitting in different geographies as well. By the way, I wanted to highlight we were planning to have a fourth panelist, but unfortunately, due to a professional conflict, Abdullah is not going to be able to join us today. So, but again, we have a good, diversity in our panel as it stands. Now, let me actually introduce the topic before we kick off the panel. And for that purpose, bear with me because I would like to share a couple of slides. I hope you can see what I'm sharing. Can you? Perfect. I see some few people nodding their heads, so very good. All right. So, of course, the topic of today is about how, to lead through uncertainty. And there is no doubt, that we are right now living in a very fast pace changing world. If I think about my own career, in my 25 years of leadership experience, I've gone through a lot of change, particularly if I think about a lot of change in my personal life, but also if I think about my professional life. I've gone through, many financial crises and restructuring efforts where I had to navigate, my teams at the time. Technology shifts as well. I remember when the digitalization started, years ago. And of course, global events. In my introduction to AGA earlier, I mentioned, COVID as an example. And if I think about right now, today, of course, we are dealing with a huge amount of change. On one side, AI is introducing a lot of, disruption and a lot of considerations on how the future of work will evolve. We are dealing with, very interesting times as well when it comes to a geopolitical situation. And last but not least, if I think of another driver of change. We're dealing as well with, new generations that bring also different set of values to the table. So I think that this quote about the fact that change is the only constant in life has never been more, prominent and more adequate, to describe our current times. But I do believe that while change happens, success lies in how we respond. And in fact, I like to talk about the idea of navigating change as an emotional roller coaster because the reality is that in my experience, change can actually be quite messy and emotional. And there are many, study or research studies actually that emphasize that yes, when we are going through a change, a big change event. And by the way, this applies whether it is in our professional but also in our personal life. We're dealing with a lot of emotions and a lot of positive emotions. We might feel excited, but we're dealing also with some negative emotions. And the research studies demonstrate that fear is by far the most prominent emotion. And I can give you an example, based on my own experience. For example, years ago, I was working for many years for a global organization, and I was approached by one of the competitors to join them. And it wasn't the first time, so I decided, to take the leap. And I remember that, so I left an organization after 17 years. I joined another one for a very exciting, senior opportunity. I joined, I had my very nice, 90 days plan to start executing on day one, but actually 3 weeks after I joined, there was a big reorganization where my role actually went out of the window. And I remember that there were all sorts of emotions, at the time. and including, certain fear or certain anxiety on whether I was going to be landing another job. But I will tell you a little bit later, how that landed, at the end. Um, Now, I do think, and I will emphasize this, that at the end of the day, I truly believe that the most successful leaders are those that instead of resisting change, they actually have the ability to embrace change and embrace change, with clarity and purpose. And this actually brings me to the last slide that I wanted to share with you before, I give the floor to our panelists. I wanted to share this, this framework that, a very simple framework that I've used as well in some, corporate events that I've run with organizations, most recently with a petrochemical global organization going through a lot of change as a result also of an acquisition. And for me, there are three, key pillars. On one side, it's about keeping a positive mindset. And therefore, the idea of you as a leader choosing curiosity over fear. So going back to the example that I shared earlier, of course, landing in a new organization and a few weeks later finding out that your role no longer exists is a tough time, right? But at the time, I decided to embrace that as a that I turned that challenge into an opportunity. And in fact, I worked very hard to demonstrate in a brand new organization what I was capable for, to build some alliance as well. But very importantly, and this goes back to the positive mindset, to make sure also that there was an alignment with my own purpose, which was very focused on helping organizations to navigate change. And after a few months, I actually landed in a role that was actually even, more exciting than I was originally hired for. The second key pillar is about, adaptability. I mentioned, COVID is an example earlier, and I do think that all of us, we really had to adapt, under the COVID times. So at the time, when COVID started, I used to run a function of, 400 people scattered around the globe. And as a leader, I remember that I could really feel that, of course, I didn't have all the answers at all. I also had to display certain, also emotional support, because I have teams going through very, very challenging, also family situations around the globe. So I do think that, our ability to adapt to the new circumstances is another key success criteria. And last but not least is about, connection. And with that, I mean, really our ability to build as leaders to build trust, and their ability also to display certain level of vulnerability. I can give you one third example, which is in my last role, when I was working in banking. We were part of actually the largest acquisition in the financial sector. And there was a lot of uncertainty, because it wasn't very clear, how the mandate of my team at the time was going to evolve. It wasn't very clear, what the future was going to bring. And my main priority at the time was really to make sure that I was building, a safe space as well for everyone to raise their concerns, and that I was doing my best also to convey those concerns to my management, to make sure that somehow those were taken into account. So I'm mindful that I've been sharing my experience so far, but let me actually turn the floor, and let me actually stop sharing as well. Turn the floor to the panelists, because give me 1 second that I need to close the presentation, because I would like to hear now more from your experience, Putri, Aga, and Tanya. So let me start actually with you, Putri. Putri, you have led large change, large, well, better. You have led large international organizations through quite significant change. And I'm curious to hear, on your view, what have you found, most effective in maintaining engagement and optimism when, navigating teams through this level of uncertainty?
Hi everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you, Araceli, for inviting me to this panel. So I've been quite lucky enough to have the opportunity to navigating different kind of organizations, not only different sectors but also in different countries as well. So and also having a local roles versus a global role. Um, and mostly in manufacturing based organizations, which has quite a lot of blue collars workers as well. And my experience is like I have been through. I also have the opportunity to become a crisis manager in one of my professional career. And that actually taught me a lot of things because during crisis, that's like the most uncertainty you can have as a leader. Um, and also I led through like post CEO transitions, post merger, regulatory crisis. So in different kind of sectors, and what I learned, I've seen that people don't disengage because they don't like the change. They disengage because one, they are not sure what their role is in this change. Second, they don't feel like they are being seen or heard as a as a person, and people don't understand the why we have to change. So I guess the what I found most effective in across the different organizations that I have experience on is one first one is transparency, and transparency would create the trust, and that's also I learned a lot from my time during being the crisis manager, because during crisis I need to manage everybody including the CEO to make sure that they know what to do during that time. And transparency is the first thing, because what I learned is that I realized very quickly that in a crisis, people are not waiting for perfections; they're waiting for clarity, and they're waiting for signals from the leadership that that they know what to do. And it doesn't have to be a perfect messaging, right? And also the second one is as long as they understand the what, the why, and the how, and we need to also like having transparency fast when people need it the most. And second, I think Araceli, you mentioned that before. I think the most effective one is also connection, and building connection is so important because I think people will really stay engaged and with this connection. And connection, I think one of the key skills for leaders to build so that they can build authentic connection, especially during uncertainties. And my experience, for example, like we were post during post CEO transition, and this CEO has been in place, is a global CEO, has been in place for many years, and the company and he was let's say not out in a good way, let's say, by the board, and people were afraid and not sure about the future. And while they were hiring new CEO, and I was actually asked to when we hired the new CEO, I was actually asked to lead the cultural transformation. And I think the connection one is super important, and how to we can build really in fast. People want to see the leaders' presence, and give a message, very clear message on what's next, right? So the connection is important, and also the third one I think is involving people early, and I think people would be so engaged when they are involved, and it's not coming from from global headquarters or from only the CEO, but involve them. So also in this company that I led the culture transformations, we involve them to, okay, what do you want next for this company? Because we were like changing the direction in terms of culture, and we asked like 500 or 700 people across the organizations, managers, middle managers. So we get inputs. So we get them involved very early to define the next steps, and then so they feel heard. And that's also very important for me to engage people and keep people optimistic. And my key takeaway is that optimism doesn't come from messages. So normally we are trying to focus on crafting the right messages. It's also important, but it comes from participation as well. So when people feel they participate, they're involved in the process, they feel engaged. And if people feel informed, connected, and involved, they can walk through uncertainty with energy and positivity. So that's my experience, Araceli.
Thank you, Putri. And I like your emphasis about, teams being heard, being also involved, and equally, leaders being present, even more, under uncertain times. So I'm curious to hear from Aga, actually, also based on your experience as chief of staff in banking, where you led global teams through very uncertain times. Yeah, let's pick up COVID as an example. How did you help people, Aga, to stay connected when everything felt so unpredictable?
Thank you for that question, Aratelli. And first and foremost, thank you everyone for having me. I am really, really happy to be part of that discussion because, to your point, Aratelli, uncertainty seems to be the new normal nowadays. So coming back to your question, I remember when COVID hit, in fact, was towards the end of the year. And that was actually one of the busiest period for us because we were wrapping up on a lot of projects, preparing for strategic roadmap for the year ahead. And in the midst of it all, in fact, then almost overnight, actually, everything completely changed. And our priorities and our focus changed from long-term planning and relative stability in all of this to how to build a resilient team, how to make sure that everybody were feeling okay given the circumstances, and how do we continue to deliver, of course, because it is equally important. So what we did was actually multi-layered, and we started with alignment as a management team on what were the immediate priorities, what do we have to do, and how do we have to implement them. And we started implementing them. We started with organizing remote team building events and offline coffees for smaller groups, because that was actually particularly important for all the team members who were living alone and for whom lockdown, isolation, and all of this, in fact, was super scary and of course, super challenging at the same time. So as a leadership, in fact, what we also agreed for and we wanted to do was to create a bridge, and that bridge would be a space for people, in fact, for us, all of us as a team, to reach out, to talk, or simply feel heard. Because in the end, in fact, even if there was no specific business question, and especially if there is no specific business question, but there is a lot of anxiety in crisis mode like that, you need to have that space to reach out, to feel connected with people. And I actually, now that I think about it, I remember having a regular coffee chats with one of the team members who was really, really in a complicated situation. That person was living alone and was not handling the isolation very well. And so what we did, in fact, we had regular chats about about books that we read. We ended up giving each other recommendation, exchanging our point of view, and planning what would we do when the lockdown finished, what would be the most immediate priorities, like starting the gym, doing a lot of sport and all those things. And of course, if you think about it, I mean, we had 50,000 other things to do. We had plenty of priorities. We had plenty of projects to take care of. But in the end, for us, what was super important was to maintain that human connection. And one thing that also made a big difference for us as a management team was to make those regular check-ins, those regular parts, in fact, the standing agenda item in our weekly meetings, because by embedding them in our weekly meetings, it became something completely natural. It actually became a point of our routine. And I remember we would regularly review how are our team members going, what are our observations, where do you think we do as a collectively, as a team, where do we feel we should do more, that more could be and should be actually, and decide on it collectively together. So what it did, in fact, also, it turned care and connection from something that sometimes, in a crisis situation, you treat as an ad hoc. So you do it, but you don't do it regularly because other priorities come in. For us, it turned it into a consistent, repeatable practice. So to make my long answer short and to maybe condense it in a key recommendation, in any crisis situation, what I would say is, first and foremost, as a leader, be present. And honestly, in any crisis situation, you don't have all the answers. Nobody does. But what makes all the difference for your team is actually when you just show up, when you are just there. As a leader, you are there for them. And they feel it, and they will always appreciate it. Secondly, I would say prioritize human connection over output. So, of course, as I said, we always have to deliver. We always have to do 50 out of 1,000 things, but it all comes down to well-being. If your team feels well, if your team feels equipped to handle the situation, they will deliver. It will come naturally. That should not be the first point of focus for you. And embed support in your daily routine. So make it a standing agenda in your management meeting. Don't let it slide on the side tracks. In fact, don't make it somehow ad hoc. Make it a standing agenda, embed it in your daily routine, and your team will notice and will appreciate it. And last but not least, small gestures. You really cannot underestimate them. They really matter. Remote coffees, short chats, informal exchanges. Those are really, really simple things that you can implement quite easily, because in the end they require only your time and your willingness and openness to do it. And what they do is incredible. They honestly can tangibly help reduce anxiety and strengthen the resilience, in fact. So to me, COVID confirmed something very universal, in fact, that in times of uncertainty, leadership is really about being human first, honestly. It's about creating stability, about fostering connection, and ensuring that even in unpredictable time, to your point, Putri, in fact, there is connection, that people feel, in fact, there is trust, there is connection, and they know that you are there for them.
Thank you, Aga. Thank you also for putting the emphasis on a point that is very close to my heart, which is, human connection, empathy is not in contradiction with strong results. Actually, it's the other way around. I truly believe that they can, fuel better performance. So, thank you very much, Aga. So let me actually move to you, Tanya, and bring a different perspective on the table. So, from your work on how technology impacts the future of work, how can leaders support their teams to adapt, to this new tech era as well?
Thank you, Araceli, and again, thank you for inviting me to the panel. It's a real pleasure being here. So for me, technology is a disruptor, and it always were a disruptor. I mean, you mentioned COVID. If we didn't have technology, we wouldn't survive. No coffee, virtual coffees, no virtual chats, nothing. So technology is a disruptor, and was always there to change the way we work. The last period, the last 3 years, we hear about AI, and AI will take our jobs, and people are actually afraid. I mean, we did in the Society of Business Psychology in the Middle East, where I am a member, we did a survey with students and people, professionals, and the anxiety that technology will take my job actually came first. So there is a fear. My suggestion to everyone, leaders and non-leaders, is actually that you need first to learn what it is and what you are afraid of. So first, you need to learn. So don't take the conspiracy theories that are around about the jobs are going to be disappearing and all that, and everything that you read in the news. Just dig deeper and understand what's happening. So the first lesson for a leader is just read, just understand what are the large language models, what they can do, what they cannot do, what it is in the market, what is successful, what is not successful. So this creates a clarity to the leader. So if there is fear in the team for something that is coming, at least you can have a discussion. The other thing, which is important, is to understand that your team needs development. So the other quality for me is to give space and the tools for people to grow, to build new skills that will make them employable. Because let's face it, things will change. I mean, forget about AI. In the 1950s, you had the typewriters. It was a job. So then computer came. And guess what? We don't have typewriters anymore. So what happened? People just did something different. So you need to equip your team to be able to do something different. You need to help them evolve. So I do believe that's going to be a change. But change is constant in the workplace. It's just this time, I don't know, people feel like it's difficult to understand why it's not. The reason that generative AI, a large language model, are so disruptive is because they are so easy to use. So previously technology was difficult to use. Now it's very easy and it's available to everyone. So everyone is using it somehow. Is the right way? Is the ethical way? These are questions that need to be answered, and we are in early days. But as a leader, you need first to understand all this. So you give answers that make sense, and you help people develop and become more employable, because they may lose their jobs, not because of AI, because of 1 zillion things, because your company needs to invest in an AI technology, and guess what? You don't have the budget, so you're going to cut jobs. The AI doesn't take your job, but the budgeting does, and this happens everywhere. So I believe there is a disruption coming, and I believe that people are not equipped at this time to understand where and how. So that's my, that's my area of work, and this is what I'm trying to explain to people by giving them examples of things that happened in the past. I think that's my answer. Learn yourself and help others learn.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And I think you have put the emphasis, on one side, it's a human being reaction I mentioned before, right? Fear, anxiety is the most, immediate reaction that we might face towards change. But on the flip side, you're right. I mean, we have to adapt, and continuous learning, is a must, right? To make sure that
Exactly.
our team also can, teams can embrace those new skills. So Let me thank you, Tanya. Let me actually go back to Aga and bring different topics. So, Aga, you have recently written an MBA thesis on a very interesting topic about values-driven organizations. And could you maybe share, one insight that in regards to values driven organizations that leaders might often overlook in turbulent times?
Thank you for that interesting question, Aroteli. So I would say that from the recent research and all the talks that I held with various CEOs, one insight about values-driven organization is that they may tend to overlook key aspects which are connected with what it takes to really keep values alive and keep purpose alive. And it isn't necessarily because they don't care. It's actually because uncertainty, anxiety, and external growth pressures and other impactful things, in fact, they may automatically shift their focus elsewhere. And in that insight, in fact, there are, I would say, three challenges that are the most impactful and that might be the most turbulent for them. And one of them is how to balance priorities. So obviously, when you are a values and purpose-driven organization, your strategy is tied to your long-term mission and vision. And you think you have it all figured out, laid out, and it's all nice. But then when uncertainty hits, what happens is very often, and it's completely natural human reaction, you focus on short-term pressures. And those short-term pressures, in fact, even subconsciously in a way, they can impact the decisions you are making. And because they impact the decisions you are making, they might compromise, in fact, your core values and your mission of the company. So the real question in that instance becomes, in fact, how do you stay true to your mission, to your vision, but at the same time, how do you stay sustainable and profitable? And another challenge I would call out also is passing the torch to the next generation. And this is, I had a lot of really, really interesting and deep dive conversations with the CEOs, because the way it is in fact, so when you are a CEO, you create a company because obviously you are a value-driven person. And for you, that company is a baby. You put everything in it. And in fact, what very often happens, or what may happen, is that the culture and the values that you have built, in fact, when you pass the torch, it may not endure beyond your tenure. Because, in fact, without the deliberate action, so without really wanting to embed those visions, missions, and values in the core of your culture, so in processes, in the way you make decisions, in the way you exchange with your team members and your management team, you risk making it one person dependent. And in fact, then in the end, you risk making it not last, basically. And a third challenge, which I find particularly interesting actually, is scaling your culture as you grow. Because obviously, when you are a smaller company, your culture in a way grows organically. So you take people on board that you think identify with your values, and you nurture that culture and you build it together in a completely organic and natural way. But the thing is that when the expansion challenges come in, what you have to ask yourself is, how do you actually expand it beyond your core culture? How do you expand it beyond that small structure that you have into different geographical location, teams that are culturally different by default and totally normal? How do you make sure that it's consistent and that it is actually explicit, that you don't lose it? So I would say, in short, in fact, turbulent times and expansion pressures, external things that come in on your plate regularly, which is a daily routine of every CEO, a leader, they can make it easy to shift and to overlook how really embedding culture, how really embedding values and purpose and your mission statement in your culture, they are maintained, in fact. And I would say that only those leaders who embed it intentionally, who take really conscious decisions, who make conscious choices despite the challenges, in fact, they manage to embed it, they manage to create resilience, and by default, in fact, they manage to preserve their mission and ensure that what makes their organization unique continues to thrive, and that continues to be the case, in fact, despite the circumstances. And of course, it isn't that you can somehow avoid making tough calls on sometimes, which happens also for a lot of people, in fact, have to compromise sometimes on your values. But the core of what you stand for, of what you build as a CEO, as a leader, will stay intact.
Thank you, Aga. And you actually alluded to one point that I'm interested to explore a little bit more, which is the challenge, of these type of purpose-driven organizations where they are looking to scale and they are looking actually to then expand to teams that they are culturally quite different. So I'm actually interested on hearing your perspective in this regard, Putri, because you mentioned at the beginning about your international experience across multiple countries, and I'm interested to explore a little bit more. How do cultural expectations influence people responses to uncertainty and change?
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic, Araceli, because I mean, I have experienced different kind of cultures and very different cultures, right? So born and raised in Indonesia, spent most of my career in Southeast Asia, studied in Australia, also a completely different culture. And then in the past 10 years, I'm in Europe now, in France and in Switzerland. And I think culture shapes what people fear, what they value as well, and what they expect from leaders. And they vary from one culture to another, and that directly influences how people respond to uncertainty or change. And across my work in the different countries, Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia, Americas, I think I've seen some patterns. For example, high context cultures, such as Indonesia, for example, also Malaysia, most of the Southeast Asian countries. But even though there are kind different culture, even from Indonesia to Malaysia, etc., high context cultures want reassurances, presence, and relational safety more than others. For example, some practical examples. So during I mentioned about the post-merger interactions. So I was in an Indonesian company. We are a multinational company, acquired a very big local company, and I was leading the post-merger integrations in that company, and I found that regulatory formal messages doesn't really work. Like you communicate with I don't know, like newsletters or whatever that you can find, and they need to see the leaders on the ground and talk to them, and during this merger, and also answering questions, direct direct questions to the leaders, and those the kind of face-to-face sessions really help to bridge these high context cultures. And also honest feedback, we also built like a small private conversation, so where people can, because normally in this kind of culture people don't speak up in big meetings, they speak up in small meetings, like 4 or 5, maximum 10 people, and facilitated meetings, and that helps a lot to really identify the key challenges on how to move forward. So that's also like I did a lot of work with my previous company. It's a mining company, and then they are in different countries in the world, and one of the big countries is DRC. So in DRC, they also wanted to the leaders to show emotional steadiness, for example. So like short daily check-ins, that's important for that specific culture. because people can create a lot of rumors if you don't create those kind of interactions. So we need to build some kind of routines, engagement with these teams, and how we can build trust through this uncertainty period of times where people then understand, okay, what it means for me, and they can ask questions. So that's one example of the high context. While low context cultures, this one is like UK, Australia, Netherlands, for example. They want more autonomy, rational, and logic, and the why. So also within this culture transformation, the global culture transformation, there were kind of like a different requests from different part of the world, and teams in the UK, in the Netherlands, their questions are more like, okay, what's the strategy after the CEO change? What's the strategy? What's the data behind this? Why are we doing this? What behaviors need to change? And in that sense, we really create like a very structured kind of like toolkit for the middle managers. When you introduce from the top strategic narrative and behavioral model, and what do we expect from each of them to behave differently in the coming years. And another example is ambiguity. Tolerance towards ambiguity is also different depending on the culture. In Switzerland, for example, there's different headquarters, right? I have teams headquarters in Switzerland, and then teams headquartered in France. So teams in Switzerland, teams ask for more like clarity, governance, timelines, like, like very structured things that has to be in place. And but in France, the people are more interested in participations. They want to be involved. They want to contribute to the process. So I think as a leader, we need to, especially if you're a global leader, you need to really identify this. We call it microcultures. So we have a big company culture. We have, like Aga mentioned about the values, mission. That's like the spine. I call it. It's the spine of the company. But sorry, the kind of like the so that you have the many spines that consisting of different country cultures that then it needs to be considered. So I think leadership must adapt one spine, many expressions, one truth, many translations, and even though we say one value, one culture, but many different realities in different countries. So that's my experience.
Thank you, Putri. Very fascinating topic, and I have to say I've learned, because I work in different parts of the world as well, and I've learned a lot from your response about commonalities between certain cultures and others. So very, very insightful. One last question, actually, for Tanya, because I'm keen to give some space as well to our audience. What's one simple leadership behavior that builds trust fast? We have talked a lot about being present, building trust, connection. What's one leadership behavior, Tanya, that is a must?
In times of uncertainty and change, I suspect.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I think composure. Because when people don't know who can guide them, they need to find someone that looks, at least knows what they are doing, even if they don't. So I think it's composure. Of course, behind it is a combination of skills and experiences and personality traits, maybe. But in the time of crisis or in a time of change or uncertainty, you are looking for that person. Now, for leaders, because everyone who has led a team can remember that time. That time when you understand that you are the one who needs to give the solutions now. There is no one else, and people are looking at you. I mean, I do remember several times where I realized that I'm the one who takes the decisions now, and tough. I need to look, the role, and people trust you at that point. And I mean, in crisis, like once we were in a building that caught fire, and you know, people were looking at the project manager, that was me, to get them out. So you are the one who takes the decision. So try not to hide your fear, your own uncertainty, because if you don't, then everybody will be very worried. Now, this type of behavior, I believe, needs a lot of resilience, and resilience came again and again in our conversation and the replies from Putri and Aga. Resilience is a must. So people who cannot navigate, who cannot, keep up the course, understand what needs to happen in order to move forward, they cannot look composed when time comes. So, you and again, this comes with experience. So at the beginning, everyone who leads for the first time will face situations that they don't know what they're doing, and they can ask for help. And the next time it's going to be better. And the more you learn, the more you become that person that the team can trust, that they can take them out of the storm. And the surprising thing, because I was actually thinking sometime about the bosses I had in the past, who were the ones who protected me. And the funny thing is that the bosses who protected me when the times were tough were the bipolar ones. When I say bipolar, everyone has a boss that one time they were laughing and loving you, and the next time they are shouting at you. This is very common in that region of the world. But these were the ones who protect their people, the ones that they were friendly and nice, etc. When the times got tough, they just look at their own selves and they disappeared. So sometimes, this protection, that someone will protect you, is more important than someone who it's easy to work with. So, I'm actually thinking about what is this trait that makes people trust a person. And sometimes it's just the fact that it looks like they know what they're doing. And secondly, you know that they will protect you when things go tough. Well, I think that's
Thank
it.
you, Tanya. Thank you, Tanya, also for putting the emphasis of, not letting fear overwhelm you as a leader, but keeping, being calm and
Yeah.
therefore, bringing that clarity, even if you don't have all the answers, but, some clarity to the teams. I'm mindful that, we only have 6 minutes left. So I would like actually to hear from the audience if you have any questions, for our panelists, or anyone that, would like to break the ice.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Manin.
Thank you for the insights. I have a question for Tanya and for the rest of the panelists and anyone who wants to share and answer the question. So we mentioned mergers, we mentioned change management. I'm wondering because what I've heard is that most of the time the client, and I know we talked about leaders more, but I'll talk in general. The client, in times of crisis, they want to be told what to do, not be educated about like trust, and you need to do this for your team, and you need this for the change to happen, and like everything we mentioned, the human side, the connection. But in times of crisis, and I think Aga mentioned it in a way, people tend to forget the value and they want the lazy approach, and they just want to be told what to do, not be educated. So yeah, I was wondering if you had that kind of interaction and if change was really possible in these kind of situations, and in general also, like if change management does actually happen in organizations in real life.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We know each other, by the way.
Yes.
He's studying. I think you finished now in the Heriot-Watt University.
Graduated,
Yeah,
yes.
congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
So there are two different things here. I would like to separate the crisis and the change. There are two different things.
And Tanya, sorry if you don't mind, but we'll need to be very brief with the responses because there is another question as well that I would like to cover. And I'm mindful that we only have 3 minutes left. Thank you.
Of course. So, so as I said, there are crisis and change. In crisis, you just need someone to tell you what to do. In change, you have time to develop and embed values. So that's the differentiation. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Sarah, I see you raise your hand as well. Sarah, are you with us?
Sarah, you are muted.
If not, I recommend, there is a question in the chat, which is a very interesting one. What are the traits that we need to build or that we need to have for mental toughness during uncertainty? Anyone who would like, Putri,
Hello.
Aga, would you like to take that question? The traits that
Hello.
we need or build to have the mental toughness during the uncertainty.
I think also Sarah is now on the...
Yeah, let's answer this question first. Aga, would you like to pick that one when it comes to mental toughness?
Yeah. Why not? So what I would say is it depends how do you define mental toughness, because for me, there is a mental toughness which is you just resist, to acknowledge certain things and you push through. Or there is a mental toughness where you really let it sink in and then it helps you to build resilience. So if the question is, how do you build resilience, in fact, which I would rephrase mental toughness in this case to resilience, then I would say, first of all, you have to learn how to have an emotional regulation. So I know things get super complicated sometimes, and honestly, it's overwhelming, but let it sink in, acknowledge this. It gives you, this is a power of space. It gives you a bit of moment, a small moment to actually reflect and to adjust your thoughts, to plan and to move forward, in fact. And I would say it's, and I'm mindful about the time, Aratelli, so, and Sarah wants to, so I will maybe stop here, but we can pick it up separately as well. Whoever asked that question on the chat, it would be with pleasure.
Thank you, Aga. Sarah, your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, what I wanted to ask, speaking about cultures and me being based and working between UAE and Beirut, Lebanon, I would like to ask the specialists if to what extent do you think that the culture, the social culture, helps corporates be open towards mental health and well-being and working on topics such as emotional intelligence, because this is what I do in terms of corporate. However, to what extent are the corporate cooperative when it comes to this to such topics?
Putri, would you like to give it a go, or Tanya?
Sure. I can I can help answer. I think there's a very big influence on the local culture and how they perceive mental health and well-being. And I think the way we communicate about mental health and well-being cannot be the same across different cultures because people might see it differently. And I think it's really important to understand how it is perceived locally to really get the message right, because otherwise you're going to lose the people before you even talk about it. So I think that's the important thing. And then what's the second question? I don't remember now.
How the corporate are cooperative? To what extent are they
contribute to it?
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of companies now have like well-being specialists within their teams. They have well-being programs, and in my experience, I also used to lead this in my previous company. My experience is that the discussion with the local team is key on how to land the topic well on the ground, because it cannot be something coming from the CEO or from the top management. It can be something coming from them in terms of intent, but in terms of the how, that needs to be discussed really with the local team on the ground, because then they know the best how to embed that in their daily practices.
What I would, by the way, emphasize, because I'm mindful that now we are, overrunning. I mentioned in the beginning that it is the start of a collective wisdom series. We are actually planning some, some webinars that will also be focused more on the well-being, mental health topic as well, because we know that it's a very, very prominent topic, when it comes to leading through uncertainty. And one last point, I know that there was a question. By the way, there was a question that we were planning to cover with the panel as well, but we ran out of time, which is about, how it was a question in the context of merger or acquisitions where, there will be, there will be jobs that will need to be, let go, how to handle that situation as a leader or something like that. So the question in the chat, I would just say to add add to it that is simply, for me, it's a question of, showing compassion, but also being transparent, as much as possible. It's a very short answer, and I'm sure that, Aga, Putri, Tanya, you would add more to it, but I'm mindful that we are, overrunning already. So I wanted to take the opportunity, first of all, to you, Aga, Tanya, and Putri, to say thank you to you for being with us today. And maybe just one word from each of you, one word about what do you think or what do you want, leaders to remember when leading through uncertainty, which is the one word that you want them to remember.
I can start.
Okay.
Go on. You see, we are no. Go ahead, Tanya.
Flexibility.
Flexibility, very good. Linked to adaptability, Aga.
Presence.
Presence. We talk about that. Putri.
Connection.
Connection. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. It was the first, the first series. So looking forward to see many of you in our upcoming ones. We have another one next week as planned already. And feel free also to connect to the panelists, to myself, in case you have any further questions. So thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.